I'll call the meeting to order.
Recording in progress.
I'll call the meeting to order for the September 23rd, 2022 special meeting of the Federal Way City Council. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome. We are here to discuss the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, allocation discussions. First, we'll have a brief presentation by Brian Davis, the interim city administrator. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't have much of a presentation because we've met on this at least half a dozen times as a full council. So the last we met, we're discussing, we have approximately $10 million left to allocate. We've already allocated about 9 out of 19 total. So it's this this column right here that we're trying to decide what to spend on. So that's where we're at. I'm happy to.
Can you just
Yeah.
to get us started? Can you go through what the possibilities are? Just go through it line by line, real quickly.
Yes, happy to. So this first column is what the council has already approved, and that's the $9 million that has been approved. A lot of it is towards management of the ARPA money or grants that we want the city to pursue. We've also done hazard pay that was previously approved by council to grocery workers and others that were affected by COVID. We did broadband infrastructure in the amount of $50,000, and then we added police vehicles to the added staff that the council approved. We also approved a number of one-time items to help with some of the things that the city needed to replace. The big one being the slide at the Federal Community Center pool. We also did a retention bonus for staff in the amount of $5,000 per employee for those that stay through the year for 2 years. And then, by the way, we also noted a $100,000 decrease in that estimate because the original estimate was very conservative and was intended to cover every employee on record. The reality is that we don't have every position filled, and so that's the reason for that estimated reduction. And then we also bought winter vehicle equipment to help with the snow events. Those are what the council has approved and what is currently underway of purchase. What we have proposed, or what the committee proposed for the remaining amount, is to do $2.15 million on streetlights installations throughout needed areas of the city that need streetlights. The roundabout at 373rd, which is a high accident intersection, Pack Highway 373rd. The total amount of the project is $3.5 million. We've allocated $900 for that. Okay, I'm sorry. That's $800. I skipped the Celebration Turf Park, replacing the grass fields at Celebration Park, estimated to be at $11.5 million. This number was originally higher, but due to other needs, the ad hoc committee did reduce this amount to $900 to at least have something available to maybe some seed money or something that could leverage potential future funds for that project in the future. Demolition of the Target building, we did include that. That's an ongoing liability for the city that we own and is problematic on a weekly, if not daily basis for security and maintenance. Oak Court, replacing the software that the court uses, which as we've had a new public defender come online has been very, very helpful. Prosecutor software likewise to make it compatible with Oak Court. Dark trace, disaster backup, password management, those are all IT, needed IT enhancements for the city as we face increased security issues and potential problems. The the HVAC systems at the three major city facilities, City Hall, the Community Center, and the Hvac. Upgrades to those facilities. City Hall and the Community Center are due. The Hvac upgrade is slightly less since it is a newer building, but because of new expectations for air purity, it was deemed to have that as a needed expense for this money as well, to make it a truly state-of-the-art building. I skipped over the Sahali Sport Track. That's something that also was included. The rest of them are touchless features. Again, this is to help out with the sanitary ability of increasing the sanitation of City Hall, so that you don't have to touch a fountain that someone else has touched. That's common in most modern facilities now. The big one is one of the big ones is social services support in the amount of $3 million. This is something that the Human Services Commission recommended. The council and the ad hoc committee was supportive of that. We've had a lot of requests from various people at this very microphone asking about what the ARPA funding could go towards as far as social services, and we've always indicated that there will be money going towards those services, and that's what this big pot would in theory cover. And then we also included $15,000 to the Arts Commission, and that left over with $484,792 for contingency, for anything that we just need to have room for, or if there's any additional things that need to be covered that the council felt was appropriate. That total that I just read gets us to the roughly $10 million that is left to allocate, and that would take care of that entire $19 million allocation that the government has given to the city of Federal Way.
Brian,
Yeah.
the chamber pulled their request.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I skipped over that. At the very top, there was a request from the Chamber of Commerce for $750 to help out with economic development efforts by the chamber, as well as a $300,000 marketing proposal from the Federal Way Mirror, also intended to get the word out for various businesses in the community to help them get more increased advertising, so that both of those were intended for economic development of businesses in the community. The chamber has since withdrawn the request, as Becca Martin came to a recent meeting and withdrew the request. So what remains is just the $300,000 from the Federal Way Mayor.
Before we go any further, I need to excuse Councilmember Tran. He had a business obligation or work obligation, so he's unable to attend. So his absence is excused, for the record. All right. Okay, was there anything else? All right, Council, any questions, or Councilmember Cepedos?
Yeah, thank you, and I apologize for being late. I came from work as well. So with the chamber not requesting this, are we discussing this now?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with the chamber not doing this, and I know there was a discussion around childcare provision, so I think doing that, I know one childcare provider was here, the school program, I forgot what it's called. But I believe instead of making it for one individual program, I think adding that to the economic impact category and adding for childcare services or provision. And then I also would definitely push for Federal Way Public Market to also be part of that, because it's also an economic impact, or it's for economic development, or whatever the word is. So that would be my suggestion. But also, yesterday I was at a meeting where they were talking, Kirkland is doing a gun buyback program, which is robust and very useful. And I asked why people would give back their guns, and one of the answers was around suicide prevention, because, some people are using those guns to commit suicide. And then, of course, from the chief, there was that email that was sent where there was 2 incidents in our city. So I think for us to even look at that, and I don't know where that would land, But that's something, if the council wants to do that, gun buyback program might be something that we might consider. And I don't know if this ARPA fund qualifies for that, but another thing I would like to see happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. So are we talking, let's see, I know we were talking about 3 million that we were going to be discussing pretty much, but you're really talking 10 million that we're going to be discussing.
That's correct.
So the 10 million would include everything but Celebration Park turf.
It doesn't include the full amount of the celebration turf. It includes 900,000 towards it.
So we have 900,000 allocated for that, but we have an additional 750 that we could
Yes.
allocate somewhere.
Yes.
And I know that we had a request from Lake Haven for water bills that have gone unpaid and due to be shut off. Is that included under the social services department?
It is.
Okay.
It is under this proposal. The council can separate that out if it wants to, but as it's currently proposed, it would be part of that, the social services.
So they would just apply like everybody else?
Mhm.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Thank
And
you.
then Councilmember Dovey?
So with the 750 that the chamber requested that we had in there, I'd like to see some of that go to seed money for an inclusive park here in Federal Way. We, as a city of over 100,000, really need a park that is inclusive. Smaller towns of 3,000 people have parks built for everybody, and we don't. So I'm not saying that the city needs to pay for the whole park, but I think we need to get something going and then have other organizations jump in and help us. And as for the childcare suggestion, I believe that King County is putting millions of dollars into childcare services. I believe we heard that from Sarah recently. Is that,
I think.
was it Best Starts for Kids or something, or?
But that's competitive. Yeah.
King County did had a recent program along with Seattle that it covered childcare providers outside of the city that included a stipend or payment to childcare workers. I do believe that they've had some grants. I don't know the funding amount of those grants, that I can look and see what I can find.
Oh, that would be awesome if you could. Thank you. All right, thanks.
All right, Councilmember Dovey, and then Councilmember Septa Dawson, and then Council President.
I might take a little different track than what we've already had the discussions on right now. I'm really more interested in
I see.
the
Sorry.
groups of the money. I mean, the 750,000 that the chamber said they don't want, I think that should go back into the pot so we can talk about what we're going to spend it on and not decide what we're spending it on tonight or today. But I had a question about the ARPA administration costs. Those are all sunk and spent already, is that
No.
correct?
No, because we, especially for the 3 million, that's considerably more than we usually manage.
Okay,
And then there's also reporting for all of ARPA in general.
okay.
So those combined, we need some help to do this.
So that's really 3,650,000 if we think about that. I mean, I'm just trying to understand the 650 or the 950 for administration, if all of that's already been committed, or how that,
It hasn't been spent. The council previously approved 300 for a grant coordinator, which is still available. We don't have one currently, but we're going to get one.
okay,
And then most of the grantees, I don't know what you call it grantees, but those that are receiving ARPA funds are doing more along the lines of double what we're proposing with this as far as administrative costs. So we're proposing to do half of what most people are doing for administrative costs, just to provide the council more flexibility.
so that money is set aside for when we give the other money out so we can administer it?
That's right.
And are those full-time people, or are those contract people, or
It,
mix of both?
that's yet to be determined.
Okay, and then, I look at the things on this list, like street lights and 373 and, all these computer things that we said, to me, those are like a no-brainer. I mean, I don't see any debate in my mind on how we spend those, or if that's good business or not. But I do want to know, does it make sense to put the money in for the celebration track? You know, are we going to come up with the 11 million, and should we use the 900,000 for something else and then just put that in our budget over time? I mean, I don't know how much money's there.
For turf replacement, there currently, I don't believe there's anything in the budget. So this is basically, this is the seed money, the best way to describe it. It's starter to at least indicate that there's some commitment on the city's part to eventually get there.
And we have 3 years. If we don't get the money,
Right.
then it comes back and we can spend it as ARPA money? Is that how that works?
I'm sorry,
Well, I think we have 3 years to spend this money.
yeah, 2026.
Or 2 point, whatever it is. So we put 900,000 to Celebration Park, and in the next 2 years, we don't come up with the other 10 million that we need, or whatever the number is. Does that money get rolled back in and we can redistribute it in 2 years to
Yes.
somebody?
Yeah,
It's just more of a placeholder.
yes. The council would have to, so we have to allocate this by 2024, and so I believe there's a reallocation procedure that they could go through if they change their, if we don't get the funding and they want to reallocate it.
We need to obligate it by December 2024, one way or another,
Yeah.
to fully maximize the grant, right.
Okay, so anything, if we didn't do anything, we can put that back and put it back to social services or buy
Well,
another roof or-
and depending on how, yes, I'll just say yes. We'll work with that. With social services, there is some timelines to spend it. It's not just get it out the door instantly, so that was gonna be my comment.
And then, just from my standpoint, that when we talk about giving 300,000 to the mirror, I'm really not in favor of that, personally. I just think that we'd be better off to take that money and give it right to a business. They know how to build their business and spend their money better than forcing them to go advertise or do something. But I would advocate we look at a different way to use that 300,000 for something that's serves more people than a small group that advertise. But that's my personal opinion. I may be the only one that thinks that way.
You're not.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Norton.
Hi. Okay, so I had a question about the Celebration Park turf, because I took the time to read the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds overview of the final rule. It's really long. Actually, I read the short version that's 44 pages long, and I have it right here. And according to this, we are not supposed to invest any money in ongoing projects. So the AstroTurf would be something that we would have to continuously upkeep. We'd have to replace it every few years. So that goes against the final rule on that. So that would be a concern for me. And then if I could just say something about this opportunity that we have to everyone on the city council. I think at this point, this is the only opportunity I've ever seen us have to positively affect a great many number of lives and businesses in this city. And this is also what looks like is going to be quite the recession. It's not something that's going to just go away in a couple months, and we're facing some rough times, and so are the people that live here. So we have an opportunity to make a real difference for the citizens of the city. Most people are just one paycheck or one missed rent payment away from losing their homes and possibly becoming homeless. Instead of putting it on AstroTurf, or something that we don't actually have the money for, but we're gonna put away close to $1 million to possibly use that in the future, when the value of the dollar is subsiding every day. So that $900,000 won't spend as well a couple years from now as it will today. And, and I agree with Councilmember Dovey that we should probably do away with the mirror giving them money, because that would be better spent, I think, in the social services support, I'd like to see the entire public health and economic impacts go into the social services support fund. I had an incredible meeting with Sarah Bridgeford, and she is an expert at this. She understands how we can properly use those funds to help people and businesses in this city. I looked at how many households we have in Federal Way. There are 55,000 or so. There's a little more than that. And then the income levels of people in Federal Way are mostly medium, you know. So if we could put something together where we could help everyone, you know, a lot of people have had their rent raised by $300 or $400 a month. As someone who's a single mom for a long time, for 11 years, getting help with rent 1 month out of the year made all the difference in the world for me. And I think if we could do something like that, where we could help people who need help, and at the same time, help them with their fiscal planning, teach them how to fish, not just giving them money, but Jack has some amazing ideas about fiscal education that we could do as a city that's very inexpensive, that could be free to everyone who lives here. You know, and that's something that Sarah and I were talking about, is what's the carrot? You know, not just giving people money, but helping them learn how to budget. Nobody taught me how to do that. I didn't learn how to do that till I was in my 30s. My parents didn't teach me that. So we have an opportunity to help people, and I'd just like the rest of the council to please, please think about giving this money to the citizens, because it really is their money in the first place, right? The government doesn't give money away, they just take it and redistribute it. If we could just take this moment and use it well, and give it back to the people of the city. This is like the one thing I care about the most since we've been here, since I've been on the city council, is putting as much money as possible into social services support. Please, just think about it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Sepidawson, then the council president.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. I think if I had my way, I would definitely support you 100%, because that's what I do. That's my career, human services, and serving the population and people who need is always my priority. So I agree with you. But no, there's no but to that. To Deputy Mayor Honda's point, are you talking about adding another park, or would a park that already exists, could a park that already exists be modified to meet that need? And would it be cheaper?
Whatever works out.
Okay. So that was a question I had. With human services, though, I would love, even if we did childcare, by the way, it would go into human services. So it's all, I mean, it's still going to individuals and supporting. But if we do that, and Sarah can answer this for me, I think what we can't make it, I would love for the Human Services Commission or you to be responsible for that, and maybe that's the plan. But whatever the application process is, hopefully it would be a shorter version of what we have regularly, and that way then there's no barriers for applicants who want to submit to get those funds. So that would be what I would love to see happen. For businesses, though, if we don't use Federal Way Mirror, I know minority businesses, especially immigrant businesses, don't even know how to apply or the existence of these funds a lot of times. So if we have a clearinghouse that supports that and that helps them with whatever their needs are, then it would be great, because a lot of times they don't come to City Hall to ask for these things. They're not engaged as much because of language barrier, or they don't have the time and capacity to be here or to be a part of it. So whatever we do with businesses or small businesses, I would definitely want to see that they are served and properly are part of this process. And as much money as could go into direct service for people, I'm for it. So yeah, thank you.
Great. Are you capturing all this? Okay, great. Council President Kochmar?
So, thank you very much, Councilmember Norton and Councilmember Seppa Dawson. Very well said. So what I would like to do as well as that, but I want to looking this from a business standpoint point of view, long-term, what I think we don't understand is that our parks are very important during recession because people can't afford to have a gathering in a restaurant. Let's say they go to Still Lake Park. We're losing a ball field at Still Lake Annex. I'd like to ask Director Hutton, what does one turf field cost at Celebration Park?
Generally speaking, about $1 million per field is, about 1.1 million, or 1.5 million, $1.5 million per field.
Okay.
It depends on, as you make changes underground, under the surface level, drainage, compaction, rock, things like that
Sure.
have to be accounted for.
So if we were to, I can't remember what our lobbyist, Rick Agnew, said about the federal government and President Biden's proposal for parks overall. Was there going to be anything next year in the federal budget for celebration?
I don't have that at my fingertips. I can find out.
Yeah, would you? I'd be real interested in that. For one thing, what we don't realize, and we always forget, and I've tried to find this out over the years, when we have parks, we have maintenance, ongoing maintenance every year. So that's money every year that we can't put into social services because we're putting it into mowing the grass or maintaining. And I know that once you have turf, right now our children don't all use Celebration Park. It's used for tournament play because they have to let it sit fallow for the tournament play, and so they can't use it. But if you have turf, you can use it 24/7 because we have lights. And a lot of our groups will use Celebration Park after hours for soccer, baseball. So I'm just wondering, I kind of want to just kind of leave that in a no man's land at the moment, because I think there's more to this whole topic than just so much for a park or so much for, and I would like a disabled park. But there's ongoing operations. You have to look at the whole picture over time, and whether or not you can get federal money coming back in that will even give us a better bang for our buck over time. And so I kind of want to explore that a little bit more, and I'm wondering if you'd look into that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, because I know that over time, that's going to give this city big bang for the buck. And I know that that Celebration Park tournament play is very important for the region and for the people who use our restaurants afterwards, which then helps our economy. But I would like to just look at that a little more. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Dovey.
Yeah, I guess I want to follow up on our council president's comment just a second ago, and then Councilmember Norton's. You know, if we're looking at Celebration Park, the way that was built, we have 2 parks, 2 fields down on one end and 4 on the other. So if AstroTurf is really important, or turf, we should look at how to do the 2, in my opinion, and forget about the 4. At least you get a third of the way there. And if it's really important, you maybe use ARPA money and we think about it's got to be budgeted. Or, I mean, if it's really important, that's the way I would do it. And I was involved in Celebration Park much like Linda was back in the day, and I don't have a problem with it. I think we would want to move forward. But if I wouldn't do one, I wouldn't save the money. And like Erica said, money's more valuable today than it's going to be in 3 years. So it's one of those things, speed it up if you're going to do it and pay for it. However, I agree that the majority of this money should go into social services. And I'm not so always saying social services rent assistance is important, food assistance is important, all these different things are critical, but taking up on what Erica said about teaching people how to fish, and Sarah even brought this up in a little discussion I had today, I think we should spend money on classes for every home in this city. There's 34,000 homes in this city. An 8-week class to learn how to budget their money, how to pay off their debt, if they want to. I mean, make it available so everybody can learn how to, we've all had to do it, we all learned at different times, how to save $50 a month or $100 a month by being more smart about how they live their life. And then we, as our social service dollars we give become more valuable because we're giving people how to manage things and then also giving money to have them do things. But I don't know, I mean, I've talked to, I called that Dave Ramsey group back in Tennessee about their classes, and the Seattle City Police are giving it to every police officer this year to take that class to learn how to manage their money. We could do something like that for very little money for every household. Not everybody would do it, but they may want to take advantage of it. And then we get double whammy of the money, and it doesn't have to be that particular company. Sarah said there's some organizations here that do it, but something like that that's creative, there's a double whammy, to me is more important than just giving everybody, $300 to buy groceries this month or whatever it is. And I don't want to downplay that. I mean, that's important, but I think that's important, and I'm just making off-the-wall comment here. I think, we have the Arts Commission here. This may sound stupid, but if they want to do the arts program that they're talking about, I think we should fund it for 2 years instead of 1, because every time you do something for 1 year, the second year you never get it to the next year, so it's hard to plan, and it's very small money. And then, I don't know, the demolition of the Target building, I see the value of that, but if we're gonna sell that property sometime soon, that's gonna be part of the deal. And, maybe there's a different way to use that $600,000. But anyway, I'm really bullish on giving to social services to get the most people, and I would want to think outside the box. Maybe there's some class we can get that everybody can sign up for that wants to and have some incentives. Or the social services, if we give the money to the social service, require anybody that gets it to take the class. It's not, here's the money, but you got to take the class also, or offer it to people to take. And then we always keep hearing about the community market. I think that's something we should be working into the TOC, have some set-asides to make that part of our grand new downtown. Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Yeah, I would like to reiterate what Councilmember Dovey said. I think that, and what Councilmember Norton said, the idea of teaching a person to fish will sustain them longer term. And with that, financial education training would help make it so that there's less demand on our social services, and that people are better able to help themselves become more self-reliant. There's a certain sector of people who will not be capable of becoming self-reliant. But there's a lot who can become self-reliant. If we help those who can become self-reliant to do so, we can then have more funds to help people who truly cannot become self-reliant. And we'll be able to target our dollars better to help the community as a whole. And if we have a program where those who receive services are expected to take the program and then have it available to other residents in the city, whoever wants it, be able to do that as well. And I think that this would be critical. It could help us long-term. Doing this will help us long past the 3 years of the ARPA program.
Thank you. Councilmember Sepidawson, Deputy Mayor, or actually, Deputy Mayor, after Councilmember Sepidawson, then the Council President.
You want me to
Go
go
ahead.
first?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I hope this is the last time I'm going to speak, so I apologize. With the financial education, we do have a curriculum already, so there are experts in Washington State that do offer the different components of each curriculum. I wouldn't require it because not everyone has it's about time and working and jobs and time of the day and kids, right? So if there's a way to help them with this, then yes, definitely. But I would hate to require just because it doesn't serve what it does when you're forcing someone to do what they really don't want to do. However, the education is really good. One thing I learned, the conference I was at in Atlanta the other day had to do with all of this. It's the Prosperity Summit. And something they were saying promoting very heavily is giving people honorarium or stipend. And some people may do it for that, but other people would do it because they need it. And so making sure that we have that as part of the education process would be very helpful. There was so much information, so I can talk to you about it offline. The other thing that I just thought of, though, is Mr. and Mrs. Kona's, you know, how it's come up over and over, the naming of a street or, and I don't know where that's going, but I wonder if this is also part of ARPA fund, because if it's funding that's holding us up from not doing it, then I think this might be also another, something I would like to see happen and use, and I don't know how much it costs. So be it 10,000 or 20, I think setting aside for that, that way then we have, it could be part of art, I don't know. But that's something that people have requested, and here's one source that could go towards that. It's a one-time deal and we're done. So I would love to propose that. But in terms of the financial education and or any human service projects, I'm really supportive of. So thank you so much.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So, Brian, I thought with the Target building, we spoke about having that potentially being taken down by whoever buys the property.
Yeah, it's, I mean, the discussion, we might be getting into real estate transaction as a private, as a property owner, excuse me, but we, and EJ, if you want to chime in here, please do so, but the Target building, in our estimation, is no longer an asset. So if there is a property transaction to be made, the liability that is the building will figure into the price, whether we demolish it or the developer demolishes it as a result of negotiating down the price of the property. But we believe, we're confident at this point that the building is no longer usable and therefore is a liability.
I don't have a problem with taking it down. I just want it, I mean, it's $600,000, and I think you said it could even be more than that, so.
I mean, since we originally allocated this, the price has probably gone up, yes.
So I'm just wondering if it's something that we would want to have ARPA pay for, or,
EJ?
Yeah, so I would highly recommend this, if it's possible, be completed. As Brian mentioned earlier, it's a huge liability to the city as far as it being broken into continuously. But beyond that, to really get to your question, the property's worth more without that there. The building is beyond its useful life. The construction style does not lend itself to be able to be retrofitted into another building. So effectively, if we take on the responsibility of getting the building onto the ground and into a condition that a developer can come in and just start, both the time that they save as well as not having to deal with the demolition increases the value of the property more than the amounts we're talking about.
and we know that because we've talked to real estate folks who are.
Yeah, we've looked into this a number of times over the last 5 years.
So, for the financial workshops that people are talking about, I thought we already have a partner that we're working with, that we, this is a Sarah question, that we already have some kind of setup with for financial education.
Yes, we do have a contract with Sound Outreach Services, and they can do financial coaching for residents. There has to be a specific COVID tie back. The further out we get, that will be the barrier in their services. But we could look at an expansion of that. And if I can just kind of reiterate some of what Councilmember Asefa Dawson said, I think if we're looking at requiring it, I would recommend a moderated tiered approach where maybe there's a smaller level of assistance if you don't participate, and then you get some future assistance if you do. Just a thought on that.
So do you need more money in that?
On the financial coaching?
Right.
Potentially. It would be something that we'd have to talk to Sound Outreach. And then I do think that we have other providers that can provide different types of financial education. So I would look at all of those options and making sure that they have capacity to expand.
So if we put more money in, well, even the money that we have, the $3 million for social services, I don't see how you, as your department, as you're currently staffed, can handle it. And we would have to have more staffing for you to handle doing more grants, doing more work with this money, correct?
I would say yes to that. I think we're beyond our capacity where we're at with the number of contracts that we have.
Can I ask one question to that, please? Is it financial coaching or financial education that they do? Is it individual one-on-one?
It's individual one-on-one. They do have some workshops as well that we're funding the assessments and the one-on-one coaching. Clients have access to their workshops as well.
So that's slightly different from what he's talking about, I guess.
So I have one more question, and it's on the public market, so probably not for you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being here today. So the public market is a private financial endeavor. Is it anticipated that the city one day will be running it? Because I'm a little concerned with putting money into a private business, potential business, and not doing that for other businesses. In talking with Keith Niven, the study that's being done on downtown could tell us if a public market would be successful or not. And if that's what the money would be for that you guys are talking about, we could get the answer when we get the response back about what would be successful downtown and what won't be.
Yeah, I think you answered the question with that we are looking at it. We will get responses back from the analysis that we're currently running.
But is a public market, is it intended for the city to run it?
That's one of the questions that it could potentially answer, or at least provide options for either path, whether it remains private or public or somewhere in between as a partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Council member.
Yeah, on the Target building, the question I have, or the way I think about it, is 600,000, 800,000, it's whatever the number is. If we tear it down, we're just discounting our property by 800,000 or 600,000 because we did it before. Or if we sell it, we're going to discount it by that number because that's the way a developer's probably going to look at it. So it's really, when I look at it, it's not a real estate decision because it's not going to make the value go higher or lower. It's going to be the same. It's really a liability discussion. If we tear it down now, do we have less liability as a city? Because it's not going to make that property go for, if we leave it there, if we sell it for $7 million, they're going to deduct the 800,000 on what they're going to offer probably, or vice versa. Is that kind of correct?
In part. So I think you are absolutely correct. It's definitely a liability conversation. The last conversation we had about this property was with the real estate firm was right before COVID started. At that point, they told us to anticipate if we spend $1, get 120 to 130% of that dollar back for not having that asset. Okay. So it is increasing the value. Granted, to your point, I think that's somewhat nominal, but when we're talking about $600,000-$700,000, that's it's $100,000. Yeah. The bigger liability side of it is it's the ongoing cost of continually sending, whether it's the police department, the park staff, or my own staff into the building to re-secure it, kick people out of it, and the opportunity cost that's lost of all that stuff not doing something else as well.
So if we look at it like we tear it down, we will get that money potentially back into our budget, not through ARPA, so we could redeploy it for some other use. Because instead of taking a discount of 600,000 and making it 600,000 less, we may get the 600,000 back that we spent, plus, and we can spend it on police cars or on, a park or a putt-putt golf cart or whatever we want to do in the future. Is that kind of the way you're looking at it?
Yeah, I mean that's predicated on the council moving forward with selling the property, but yes, that
which I'm assuming we're going to do someday, hopefully. Okay, and the other question, following up with Deputy Mayor. When we talk about like this market idea, I look back to when we did the farmers market. Linda was on the council and I was on the council, and we actually gave them $12,000, which they paid back. but that was the seed money to start the farmer's market, and it came through the hotel motel tax money. And so we actually paid for them to get started. They were a nonprofit in the day, and now you see where it is. It goes on every Saturday, and most people show up. So I don't believe that we would ever be city-owned a community market. We were maybe talking about a location it could be or something neat in our city, but like the farmer's market, we as a council started it, loaned them the money, they paid it all back. I think they're the only nonprofit that ever paid all the money back that we gave them. Maybe there's others, but we actually got our money back, and that's how that got started. So that's how I kind of look at the community market, more of a help guide it to get to the point where it could be decided if it's actually a viable business that works.
And then we would expect them to pay us back.
Well, I don't know. I'm just giving you the history because I was there when we did that decision.
I thought the chamber had given the
No,
the
it was,
farmer's market.
I was on the committee who signed it, that gave them the money.
Okay,
It came through lodging tax. They came and asked for $12,000, and we had the debate up here. We gave them $12,000. They had a board, and then they actually committed to give the money back, and I think they had 3 years to do it.
I think since there is precedent for that, that if any money were to go to the public market, that we would expect that it would be returned to the city.
Yeah, you know, I don't have a problem with that. That's kind of how you do those kind of things to think about. And then, I don't know, again, maybe we should go through these things one by one and say, Chamber of Commerce, we're not going to do that, so we got $750,000 back. Vote up and down, are we doing a newspaper, yes or no? We're not, we are or not, and we got $300,000 back, and knock off the ones, and then figure out how much we have to give to social services and
Well, I
figure
think
out.
that we definitely have the 750 from the chamber, because they said they've withdrawn their request.
Yeah, right, we have that back.
I have
Well-
one more question on the
Yeah,
pool
go
slide. So, John, on the pool slide, are we looking for additional money for that? Because when you guys first came to us, it was,
One by one.
certainly not what it costs now. Because we were anticipating maybe getting a grant. So are you still actively looking for grants for that?
Absolutely. If we could obtain more, then we certainly would. And we're always looking.
Have you applied for any more?
There hasn't been any opportunity to apply for anything more at
Is
this
it-
point. But
is
we're
it-
constantly watching for anything that could come up.
Is there a time of the year when grants for pools or recreation like that are expected to come up?
The timing on the last one was the last round. The next would be 2 to 4 years out. However, in this climate of post-COVID, COVID recovery, things pop up that aren't on a normal cycle. So that's why we're constantly on the lookout for
Okay.
any opportunities.
Good to know, thank you.
You're
You
welcome.
know, I think, Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah, kind of going back to the financial education aspect again for just a moment. I think it would be wise to, what we've talked, Sarah mentioned some different programs. There's the Smart Dollar program that Jack mentioned. I think that it would be wise for council and staff to take a look and together and see what different programs are available and what would be the best fit. But I think, I kind of get the feeling that the council is in favor of some type of expenditure for this, for financial education. And so I think it'd be wise to take a look at see what the different options are and what the best option is.
And would that be under the $3 million for social services support?
I think that would be under the $3 million for Social
Okay.
Security's support, and also taking some of the $750 that the chamber. One thing also is with financial education, there was mention of small businesses, things that can help them, minority businesses that immigrants are starting. A financial basis of financial education will help people wanting to start a small business as well. And so it's not only helping individuals, but it's helping small startup businesses.
Okay, I've got Brian, let me just a point of order before we get further. Does the current figure, the 9.988, does that include the 750 from
It
the
does.
chamber? Okay, so
Yeah.
we should back
You're
that
free,
out.
you're free to reallocate that.
Okay, and one of the things we could do, well, actually, we've got a couple of comments, but here's what I'm thinking about doing as we move forward, is accepting motions for, instead of going line by line and saying yay or nay on each one of these, we've got a proposal, I think actually it would be probably quicker to say, should we, are there any motions to take certain items off the list?
Yes.
That'd free up was that what we were gonna say?
Yes.
Jinx, exactly. Beat you to it. All right. So is that, Councilmember Norton?
I'd like to make a motion that we remove the public health and economic impacts and move the entire $1,050,000 to social services support and add it to the $3 million.
Could you repeat that, please?
I make a motion that we remove number 1, public health and economic impacts, the entire amount of $1,050,000, and add it to
Social
the
services?
social services support, making it a total of $4,050,000.
Mayor, if I might jump in here,
Yeah.
Assistant City Attorney Kent Van Alstyne, a point of order, this is a study session, and so motions aren't appropriate in the study session. We can do consensus, but not motions, actual motions.
Well, I had to take what I could get.
So what we can do is get consensus, yeah, exactly. Let me restate it. I'll do it this way. Well, we can get consensus on it, then we'll come back and vote on it. So there's, what's that? Yes.
We haven't had a discussion on the mirror, so I don't think it's fair to include that, but you're certainly welcome to include the chamber.
Well, let's,
Can we keep discussing?
yeah. Okay, hold on for a second. First, Deputy Mayor?
So Sarah was kind enough to do research, and there is $7 million to assist with childcare costs. It appears to be open currently to applications, and Best Starts has a childcare subsidy program for 3,000 kids countywide. I agree. I mean, childcare is like having another mortgage payment. I have grandchildren, I know this. But whatever we do, we have to make sure that we're not already doing something that someone else is doing, that we're just either adding to it, but we're not necessarily, So, but I had another question on, I think I might have already asked it. Okay, so that's it. Oh, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so Councilmember Sappadasa?
Yeah, but that money, Deputy Mayor, that you just talked about is an RFP process throughout the county. So no one, and Sarah, correct me, from Federal Way or supporting Federal Way may apply and/or get granted. So we need to consider that, I think. I don't know unless you know something otherwise.
I think with the money that we want to put into social services, which is certainly something we should be doing, is going to require a whole nother, after we put the money in, it's going to require a whole nother group of meetings to decide what the programs are, what we want to support, how it's going to happen, the application process, because there has to be an application process. Could it be for small businesses who need grants too, because COVID has slammed small businesses, and going into a recession, they could be impacted again. So could small businesses be included in that? Because I don't want to forget COVID affected business, it affected people's health. So let's not forget the businesses, especially the small ones here in the community.
Councilmember Sappadasa and then Councilmember Norton.
Thank you. So I would leave public health and economic impacts the way it is, but move it to businesses or whatever, and then not put them under social services, because they're two different entities when you look at them. However, and because it's a different category, so leaving the monies there, whatever we recapture from chamber, the 750, and whatever amount we don't give to the federal mirror could stay there, but to provide services in economic development, which is part of small businesses, supporting businesses and whatnot. And with financial education, one thing I would say is, no matter how much you teach financial education, if there's no jobs attached to it, it's still difficult. Yes, people learn how to budget, how to save money, and everything, but I think, how do we tie that with workforce development and or with the apprenticeship that we have at Federal Way High. I think making those connections also would be very helpful for people that we're trying to serve. And so if we need money under economic impacts to do that, I think that's also something we could consider.
So
Thank
then,
you.
oh,
Councilmember Norton, and then Councilmember Dovey, and then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so I just want to clarify. So you're saying that under public health and economic impacts, we could rename the Federal Way proposal to just local businesses instead of giving it to one particular entity? We could share it with like several entities? I
No.
misunderstood.
So economic impact is for our businesses would go under this title, not under social services.
Okay.
So I'm trying to keep
Okay.
the title as is, and whatever we try to help small businesses with will stay there.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. And so I would like to suggest that we allow Sarah to do her job. She's really good at it, and I had a meeting with her, and I was blown away by her level of competency. She cares. She knows what she's doing. This is what she does for a living. And, I mean, obviously, she wouldn't be doing it if she wasn't good at it. And I think she has some amazing ideas, and if we could allow her to perhaps give us a presentation of what she has in mind, small businesses are included, and she, you know, she had a larger number in mind than what I didn't think I'd be able to talk you guys into that much, even though I'd like to. I would love to give all of this, you know, I know we need to keep our infrastructure, and it's really important that these funds be allocated the way they are. But I think we should let Sarah have more control over this, and perhaps let her give us a presentation of how she sees this going, instead of us sitting here haggling over it and trying to figure it out, since she's already doing it, and she has her finger on the pulse of what the community needs better than I do, certainly. I'm not gonna speak for everyone. You know, sorry, Sarah, I'm asking you to do more work, but, you know, if we come to a certain amount, maybe we could ask Sarah, hey, can you give us your ideas of how you feel this could be allocated properly? Because, you know, she explained to me how things work and how we, you know, we can't directly give money to people. We have to give it to organizations to distribute. And we talked about having to hire another person and how much money that would cost to help with the applications and all of that. So she's already got all of that figured out. So if we could give her a solid number to work with, then she could come back and tell us, okay, this is what we can do with the money, and then we can haggle and talk about it at that time. It's just an idea.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Dovey, then the
Well-
Deputy Mayor, then the Council President.
Okay, I was going to kind of make the same comment that Erica did and kind of go with what our deputy mayor said. We should just allocate this money into the pot and let our staff come back with, here's how we think it should be kind of put together. And, because we're not going to make those decisions here, we're allocating dollars. But I did have one question that came up about staff. The ARPA administration cost, doesn't that cover maybe some people that we'd have to hire in Sarah's department or your
Potentially, we
department?
were actually talking about this because, and Mayor, I haven't talked to you about this, but to Councilmember Dovey's question is, yes, this could potentially fund, or at least partial or in whole, a position in community services to not only help with administration of the ARPA funds, but just to help Sarah out because, and you'll see this in the budget presentation, that the per FTE that she has compared to other similar sized organizations is low. And so this would certainly help out with that.
I mean, almost 950,000 should fund 6 people. I mean, that's a lot of money, and
Yeah.
if we're not putting people into that staff position, and we're giving it to consultants or somebody, I think we should think about having our own people do it. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's at least 6 people that I can think of you could hire for that money. Maybe 7 if you're lucky. And then, I guess the other thing that I was thinking, if we're gonna leave this $1 million into public health and economic impacts, I just want to make sure that we're not giving it to the chamber and we're not giving it to the newspaper. I mean, we should vote on that because I think that's a whole bunch of different people think different on that. But I want to keep it in there and have it come back.
And guaranteed, the 750 is not going to the
I-
chamber.
I know
because they
that.
withdraw it.
I
So
know, but-
we're about to, I'm going to cue that discussion up
Okay.
with regard to the issue of the Federal Way Mirror in a moment, because that'll drive this discussion. So
Yeah.
I think we should probably try to get focused in
Yeah,
regard to that.
I'm-
Because
I
what
think
I
we're
want to
getting
do is
focused.
figure out what we want to do in regard to, you know, essentially streamlining the conversation.
Mayor, can I make
Yeah.
a quick comment on the categories? Because this worksheet was drafted back when Treasury had a different ruling on how the money should be spent, and the categories are not as confined as they need to be, as indicated on this worksheet. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Steve, but when we talk about public health and economic impacts, all of that is now lost revenue. It's no longer, or we don't need to categorize it in that manner. So
Correct. When we closed the books on 2021, the Treasury's formula allowed us to cover everything under lost revenue, so there's no reason to use that public health and economic category anymore. City Administrator is exactly right. It all needs to be government services that we can apply to the eligibility for lost revenue. Things that we would have done had we had the revenue.
Okay, hold on. So with regard to government services lost revenue, we're under 6, where you've got these things in yellow. I don't see them in the proposed, except for there's minus 100,000.
the yellow has already been allocated by the
Right.
council.
Okay,
Anything that's proposed currently now can be all under the umbrella of lost revenue. There's no
Very
need.
good. Okay.
There's no need to keep it as a separate category.
okay,
That's
but
all.
anything yellow has already been allocated.
Correct.
Okay, all right, Deputy Mayor, and then
you.
I want to,
So if we were to have another category for helping businesses, my concern with that is, as is with the human services, is with staffing, because we need to make sure that we have extra staffing to help with that. Our current staff simply can't take on any more than they have. So I don't know if that would be another staff member in addition to what Sarah would need to help with the human services stuff. I don't disagree. I think we need to be helping businesses along with our residents and people who live here, but I'm not sure where it would fit and how the staffing would work. And so I just want to make sure we're not overlooking that.
Can I comment?
all right. Councilmember Sabah Dawson?
So, again, this question might be for Sarah. If we're helping small businesses, for a business startup, we used to have a CDBG grant with Highline Start Zone program, and even financial education for those businesses on how to get started. Start Zone does, and I think we have, we can go through third parties like that to provide the financial education and/or startup monies. I don't know, but that might be the route to go for businesses. But it will still be under that category somewhere else, right? And then Sarah and them don't have to do it except for allocation of the.
Could you say that again?
Huh?
Could you please say that again?
Okay. So, we used to have we used to use CDBG funds to fund Highline College
Yeah,
through their small business development,
We
I
still do.
believe. And then they also have Start Zone that does financial education for businesses, for startup businesses, and they help them develop like business plans, budgeting, everything. And even sometimes they have small grants to help them start their business. So instead of us reinventing the wheel, that could go to them if they're still providing the services and if we still have agreement with them. So.
Sarah?
We do have a contract with Highline for micro enterprise technical assistance through the Small Business Development Center and Start Zone. At this time, they don't provide any direct financial assistance. They will work with financial institutions and try to get people connected. I'm not sure if they would be able to expand. The caveat that I would give with that is our programs and what we work with, they're low and moderate income business owners. So when we provide that technical assistance, that's specifically who it's going to. If you want something broader, I would recommend that we look at how that fits within economic development. It's a little beyond the scope of expertise that I have. And there might be some better people suited to helping to develop that program.
Okay, Councilmember Walsh.
Yeah, actually, I was going to when Lydia mentioned Start Zone, that is what I was going to mention is rather than reinventing the wheel, I mean, can we use some of that funding to help Start Zone and maybe talk to them about expanding their program some way, here with the Federal Way residents to better make use of that. And so I mean, they have a great program, and I think that that's an excellent idea to try to utilize programs that are already there, but directed specifically towards Federal Way residents.
Okay, Council President.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that we're getting into the weeds on some things that we don't have answers to. So perhaps maybe the best thing to do is just to go through to get consensus on the things that I think we can agree on, which I think you want to do.
Yeah.
And then come back to another meeting for things like the social services, economic development, the public market, turf fields, that are bigger questions that in the demolition of the Target building, that are bigger questions with more research that needs to be done.
Well, let me ask, yeah, absolutely. So right now, at a minimum, we've got the $750,000 that's now available. The question is there any support on the council? Let's get right down to it, and then I want to ask, is there any support, and why don't we have a discussion about the Federal Way Mirror marketing grant proposal? It's $300,000. Is there any support for that moving forward? Councilmember Dawson?
Not necessarily at the 300, but I think I'd like to support it so first of all, they're matching it, and secondly, they are still helping small businesses that do not have opportunity to do marketing.
Is there anyone else?
I agree with her.
And I would like to explore it some more.
Okay, but not at the 300,000 level?
I don't know.
We could do 150.
I need to have that discussion. But
I don't support it at all.
No.
I'm hearing two.
I'm going to abstain from the discussion with the mayor. I'm a longtime customer of theirs
Oh, I see.
with advertising, and so I'll recuse myself from the discussion with about the mayor.
Well, okay, well, we'll just bookmark, I think because we're not able to, we'll just have to bookmark that 300,000. Let me ask this. With regard to the, EJ, is there more research that needs to be done with regard to the cost of knocking down the old Target? Do we need to research this?
No, I mean, the next step, frankly, is to authorize going out and getting bids to do the work, and that'll be the point that we would actually have locked pricing.
So, look, got it. So here's the question.
Can we go to streetlights and then work down?
Well, let's talk about this real quick. Let me ask this: is there support for inclusion of ARPA funds? Is there opposition or support for inclusion of ARPA funds for tearing down the former Target?
I'd support it.
You would support it.
why don't you just say, is there any opposition?
Is there? Thank you very much.
Quickly.
Thank you very much.
Quickly.
Is there any opposition to it?
I just want to make sure it makes financial sense.
Okay.
And I know, I hear what you're saying, and I hear what Brian is saying, but I just want to make sure that I'd like to see it. What it would be sold for with the property or without, with the building or without the building.
I agree.
EJ?
Well, I don't know that it's the same. They're saying that it's not the same, that it would be worth much more without the building, but
Yeah, I mean, I can reach out to our appraiser and see if I can get them to put together a report.
Just bring it back.
They've been hesitant to do that in the past, but I can certainly ask again if that's something they'd be willing to do for us.
Okay, so we've bookmarked now the Federal Mirror, and now we're bookmarking and setting aside the issue with regard to the
Target.
the Target. Let me a second here. Demolition right here. So bookmark that. That's $600,000 at least. Okay, we'll set that aside. We've got $750 freed up. Are there any other programs on here? The turf fields at $900,000. Are there?
Bookmark.
What's that?
Bookmark.
You want to like talk about that further, or you want to like say you're interested in spending that money?
don't you want to keep that in there?
I do.
Okay, then
Right.
let's keep it in there.
Bookmark means it's still a question mark. I mean, if we,
Oh.
what I'm looking for is, when we say right now, essentially right now, Target is now off the list until further discussion, until we get, because I'm trying to get some sort of consensus in regard to, are we doing this, or are we not doing this? And, right, because what I'm trying to figure out is, where are we at as a council? Are we gonna do this, or are we not gonna do this? So, right now, what I'm hearing is for the demolition, you guys need more information before you can make that decision. That $600,000 goes in a question mark. You guys are up in the, or, there's a question mark in how and at what level you wanna do the Federal Mirror marketing. Boom, that goes in that category. What I'm trying to do is figure out what else is on that category, and then we can say yes to everything else.
AstroTurf, no, please.
Okay, so is there support, yea or nay, for AstroTurf at the $900,000? Councilmember Dovey?
I would only support it if we have two of them and we do it.
So two of them, and we do it at 1.5 is $3 million.
I know, we figure out where the other, I'm just saying, to bookmark it and hold it for a long period of time if we're not gonna do it, doesn't make sense to me. If we had the money to do it, then I would say push ahead and get it done.
Is there anybody else on the council right now that supports the $900,000 for the turf fields as currently situated in or as proposed?
I do, because long-term, we need to improve those fields. We will make more money off of that park if we have the turf fields.
Okay. Councilmember,
I'm with where Councilmember Dovey is at, that if we were to do it, we should find other funding and do two of the fields and
all right, so
get it done. Not-
so Councilmember Norton, where are you at on this?
It needs to go to the social services.
Okay. Councilmember Sefadowson, where are you at on the field?
So 900 is for how many?
It's one field.
One field.
Oh, only
It's
one.
not even one field. 1.5 is one field.
But it could be, excuse me,
Yeah.
it could be seed money from the federal government so that we could get another field. We
Right.
were promised another field.
Okay, thanks.
You know what, we have to put that, are you getting all this?
I am.
Okay, so that goes in the, what do we call that, the parking lot? or
Question mark.
The question mark box. Okay, we had $2.1 million for the street lights. Does anybody want that removed?
No.
No.
Okay, so we are good there, okay? Brian, you got that?
Yep.
The 373rd roundabout at 3.5 million, no, excuse me, that's the total, but the $900,000 our contribution. All right, is everybody okay with that?
800.
Gosh, you guys, oh, sorry, you're right, sorry. My lines didn't go over.
Put a piece of paper in it.
I know, okay, thank you very much. Okay, so 800 for the 373rd, everybody's okay with that?
I'm okay with it, but I still think the state should do it, but I just had to say that.
We did get outside funding, actually, yeah, we did get,
But it is their road.
yeah. We've had numerous people killed at that, I hear you, I know. And we had one of our state legislators literally work against us to get that funding, so, okay, there's a whole smaller lines here, down below demolition of Target. We've got Ocourt, prosecutor software, dark trace, disaster backup, password management, city, let's go with those, with there's IT. Does anybody have any objections to supporting those items?
I support them.
So is there any objections to those? Okay, HVAC, actually, boy, I do need that piece of paper. Okay, HVAC at 155 for City Hall. Any objections to that? Okay. Sahalee Sports Track, 150. Any objections to that? Okay?
I'm sorry, Mayor, did you say 155 for City Hall HVAC, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you tell me one more time what the 150 does at Sahalee, just so I
Yes,
refresh
that's
my
what
memory?
I'd like to be reminded. Is the school district putting any money into that? Just us?
Yes, the school district is a partner at 50%.
So
And
it's
they've already put their money in?
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good with it.
So then we've got HVAC upgrades at the Federal Way Community Center, which is now, gosh, amazingly 15 years old now, and the PAC HVAC upgrades at only $69,000, a total of about just shy of $200,000 for both of those HVAC upgrades. Any objection to those? Okay, you got that, Brian?
Yep.
Okay, PAC laptops with desk conversion at $20,000. Any objection to that?
What is that?
I think it was for ticketing, wasn't it?
Brian? Excuse me, John?
That allows for staff to be able to work both at the building and remotely as we did during COVID in a much better way. And also, it definitely helps the box office be able to run more efficiently on the new software packages too that they've purchased.
Any objections to that? Okay. And when it comes back for final approval, when we finally do this, you could always pull an item off. City Hall touchless fixtures. John, can you talk about that?
Yes, touchless fixtures throughout the buildings would include flushing of toilets, water fountains, water bottle fillers, faucets in restrooms. So it just another way to prevent disease. As Brian mentioned, very common in public buildings. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of touchless in this building. Would be a very big help from disease prevention standpoint.
Okay. That brings us to the social services support at $3 million. Now, my question, there was a motion, obviously we're not doing motions right now, about taking item number 1, the public health and economic impacts that's totaling at $1,050,000. Is the desire of the council to move that money down to social services or to keep that still with public health and economic impacts?
We had decided to 750, we would, but the 300, we're still gonna bookmark for later.
Okay, so we're bookmarking
300
or
for
the
the mirror.
question marking in a later discussion for the federal mirror discussion, setting aside 750, does that stay with economic impacts or does that go down to social services?
I think with social services,
I
wasn't it?
thought economic impact.
Yeah, I don't think we resolved
Well,
that.
yeah, we did, maybe that's a bookmark really,
I thought it was to help small businesses, and Sarah suggested that economic development would work with it, not her department.
So it stays there.
So the 3 million stays there, but there's an additional 750 that we're talking about.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying, is right now there's 3 million for social services. The question is whether the chamber
750.
money, the
Yeah.
750,
Correct.
stays with economic impact and stays in that separate category. Or whether it goes to social services.
Plus economic.
What is it?
You wanted economic, right?
I view those as all social services, just different categories within it.
Okay,
So you get a global approach from Sarah and the group and say,
Yeah.
of the social services, this should go towards this type of business approach, this should go towards financial coaching, this should go towards the
Okay.
food bank, this should go through,
Okay.
caregivers, Neckert, whatever it is, but they have that much money to
all right.
advise us, not that we're dividing it up today.
As long as we separate.
So that $750,000 is now going, now it's going to be $3.75 million. That will obviously be cut up into multiple different things and multiple different presentations. Arts Commission, $15,000. Anybody?
Yes. No, they need it, yeah.
Exactly, okay.
They've already committed to it, so they.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I think it's 15,000 too little, but that's okay. We can talk about it later.
But you said over
Contingent-
2 years, right?
No, it's a one project.
Contingency sets at just under $500,000. Are we okay with contingency at $500,000 or just there under?
Can I ask, what does contingency mean? If another project comes up that we want to fund, or is it like in
It's
construction, we're always?
really available to the council's discretion. That's
We
just,
can, if we decide, hey, we want to do the community market for this money, that's where it would come from, or some other great idea comes in.
We were thinking cost inflation as well on any of the approved items.
Yeah.
Just a slush fund.
yeah, eventually it will need to be allocated, but for right now, it's sort of open.
I'm okay with that.
It's a cushion.
So,
Yes.
well, so this was created, this sheet was created months and months ago. It's possible that all of these costs have gone up already. So that contingency is just needed in case those
Yep.
costs have all gone up.
Good point.
Okay, so now that we've done this, really the only issue left to resolve, or actually the only issues left to be resolved that are in the question mark category are the $300,000 for the Federal Mirror or thereabouts, that dollar figure, the issue with regard to the turf field, and the demolition of the Target building. Now, with demolition of the Target building, it sounds like council wants to hear, when we come back for final approval, we'll have the items that that there's consensus on in one package. Then what we can do is a presentation from EJ and Brian or, whoever, or Steve Groom, with regard to essentially a cost-benefit analysis, keeping in consideration market conditions with structure, without structure. Does it make sense for us to tear down? Are we in agreement there? Okay.
Just offer one last simplification of this. Let's just say that it is the same amount as it is to demolish it, as it is to keep it.
If
and
it's a
then get
push?
Yeah.
Then tear
If you were to demolish it now, we'd be, from the time that we do this analysis to the time that we eventually sell it, what you're essentially buying is all of the savings that we would not be doing every single day on the building, of sending someone in to resecure it, to cover the graffiti, to remove the liability of people sneaking into the building, potentially getting hurt.
And that's going to be in the bill, that's going to be in the consideration. That's going to be, when we get down, when we decide this, that'll be in that report. Councilman Murphy?
I was just gonna say one other thing to think about. Again, I'm not big on 300,000 to an entity, okay? But I would look at taking that and putting it with the field and building one turf field and getting it done. Then we could self-fund it.
Wait a
We get
minute.
one done now instead of,
So take that so let me ask you this, is there consensus to take that 300 that we've got right up there for the mirror and add it to the ball fields to 1.2? Councilmember Norton?
If you promise not to touch the 750 and leave it
the
in the social
750 is
services.
for social services, in my
Okay,
opinion.
then I'll agree to that, then fine.
With economic impact.
I think, okay, Council President?
Oh, but absolutely, I'm all over it, but John, can you, John, will one field do you any good at the moment? One field turf?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, actually, we moved the ball there. That's great. I see some movement here. Okay, you got all that, Brian?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so now we don't have to bookmark that 300,000 anymore. We love our friends at the Mirror, and I understand that. Actually, thank you, Councilmember Walsh, for making sure that you're careful about your business relationships. Council President?
With the caveat that John goes right back to our lobbyist and gets on the Biden proposal, parks.
Ask them to double our money.
I was just
Done
gonna
and
ask
done.
if, for,
Go ahead, John.
Yes, I will absolutely do that, and we'll continue to search for other sources as well to augment funding. Obviously, 2 is even better, so we'd like to get 2, and we'd probably get some economy of scale if we could do 2 fields at a time rather than just 1, but certainly 1 is fantastic.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
So I have
you're
a
going to need
question
it to replace that baseball field at Steel Lake Annex.
Okay.
so for the experts in this room, will doing the one park out of, 6 in turf, will that help us with the federal government and getting more money?
We'll leverage more.
Seed money.
Potentially, if you're asking me.
I'm
it's
asking
actually-
anybody.
Well, for clarity, there's 8 fields at
Sorry,
Celebration Park.
okay.
There's 4 soccer fields and 4 softball fields. We would propose starting on the soccer side, because
Yeah.
it's a year-round sport.
Right.
And probably a little more revenue on the very front end, potential on that. So, and that's where we would head first, to try and get at least 2 soccer fields, try to leverage the extra money that the council president mentioned, and other sources to try and get that.
Okay, so, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I was just gonna say, perhaps Linda and I can talk with the lobbyists and see where they can take this.
Can you please set up a meeting with Rick? It can be Zoom with the lobbyist.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so to boil it all down, the council has has reached consensus on all of these issues with the exception of one issue, which is an analysis of the business decision on tear down or continue with the former Target property. Is there anything else to discuss?
I think that we need to ask Sarah to present some ideas later on in the future on what's the now 3,750,000, and how she would propose that we
Right.
allocate that, or the methodology of allocation.
That's right. Now, what you can always approve that total, and then well, actually, I guess that's the question of, Sarah, can you talk about how that, can you give the council, when they do approve that overall funding at that level, are you going to be able to have some broad strokes in regard to, categories? Or do you want the 3.7, set aside and then sort of get to work on it and then open up an application? What does that look like?
I would like to have that more final number to work from and be able to put a proposal together. My recommendation would be to have priorities with set dollar amounts within that 3 million plus, so that when we go out for an application, there's money set to each of those priorities. It will facilitate evaluation with our commission a little bit easier. They're coming out of 2 application processes and a little bit maxed out. But I would recommend a competitive process and coming back to council with those priority areas first.
Okay, expeditiously. The last question that I want to make sure that we do. Oh, did you have?
Yeah, good, Sarah, could you, okay, with those different categories, could you propose to us what those different categories would be in your professional opinion?
Yes, right now or in
Now or
the
later?
future?
No, it doesn't need to be now. I mean,
Okay,
it can be.
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
And unless you want to be put on the spot, then.
We can give you 10 minutes. No, here's the question. Here's the question I have, which was really the last question. I know that we added that $750,000 to social services. The idea was the 750 would be economic impact. Are you thinking that out of that 3.7 million, I want to make sure that we're on the same page here, are you thinking that the public market is part of that or not? Where does the public market fit in with ARPA?
I think it's in the contingency right now.
Okay. And so
Personally.
you're thinking, so right now, that sits at about 450, 480? God, I got my
Yeah,
glasses.
it's a big number.
But I thought
484.
that part of that money was supposed to be for economic development, part of that 750. We were talking about that for social services and economic, correct?
Well,
Yeah,
Well,
Let's-
there would be an application process.
correct.
But let's find out what the study we're doing right now, let's see how far that takes the public market and see what it says about the public market.
So if
Yeah.
we do the public market, could we take out of the contingency 100,000 and earmark it? And say, this is what we would, once we get our report back that's coming out pretty quickly from the TOD property, and just, not spend it, but just put it there, so it's for planning purposes.
okay, so that's a balloon. Let's see, you've raised the flag. Let's see if anybody salutes. Anybody interested in, that's a line of an old movie.
I can be on board with that.
You could be?
Yeah. mhm.
Okay. Do you-
I'm very interested in the public market because it's a real benefit for, people come with Hvac coupons to buy at the market, and yes.
Okay, so I think actually there's general consensus about this. Here's my question. When we do the contingency, you guys, contingency in regard to public projects, actually if we're going to build something, or whether it's a road or anything, projects like the PAC have contingency. Is that 484 that's in the contingency right now, is that based on a percentage of the money, or is that just sort of what's left over? Steve Groom, talk to me about, is there a magic number that we would want to have with regard to contingency in regard to money's management here?
We were concerned several months ago about inflation, and inflation's gotten worse. So we're thinking about things that are approved costing more than we intended.
Would you be concerned, let's just talk about this real quickly, if we earmarked out of the 484 that's contingency, if we just earmarked right now, depending on how everything goes, and obviously we've got the study right now, the TC3 study, do you have any concerns, just as a numbers guy, money guy, about earmarking $100,000 for the public market out of that contingency?
No, sir?
Is there overall consensus for that? Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Would there be a requirement that they pay it back?
Well, council, what do you think of that? Let's talk about that.
No.
Well, I'm just, because we already did this apparently with the farmer's market, so I don't know.
A different source of
I
funding.
think that'd be future discussion. That doesn't need to be decided now. That could be future discussion.
This is a different source of funding.
It's good to raise the issue, to just say, this is, based on prior practice, but I'm not hearing consensus on that in regard to, we'll think about it, we'll look at it.
And I have one last question.
Go.
Going back to the ARPA administration cost.
Yeah.
It seems to me, I would hope that we get a thing that comes back and says, out of that money, we're hiring, we got $3.7 million we're gonna distribute to people who need it in different projects. Maybe some of that pays for another person in the budget to help Sarah and you, and whatever that looks like, or you don't need all that money, so it gets back so we can do something else with it.
So are you talking about that $700,000 under
Yeah,
item 7?
I'm looking up here on 7.1.
Yeah,
I mean, there's 300 and 400.
yep,
I
700.
don't think we've spent it. Maybe we have. I
Well,
don't think
it's
we have.
yellow on my sheet, which means well, I guess maybe,
We've earmarked it,
Yeah.
but have we written the check to somebody?
650 is probably the best number to work from.
That's still there available
Yes.
that hasn't been committed?
Correct.
So I would hope that out of that 650, that's some of the thought power and the brain power and the people power and the things we need to do to administer what we just talked about.
I think we agree, didn't we agree to that?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Well-
you and I had talked a little bit about making that work for Sarah's group. That might be something that we'll amend in our budget presentation because it's not in the book that is presented to you.
Okay.
okay,
Okay.
Real
You
quickly
guys-
on procedure,
Yeah.
we taking this back through committee or straight to council?
straight to council.
Okay.
We've already had, I don't think, we don't need to, there's no necessity for death by due process. So,
Can I ask one
we've already done it.
Can I ask one
Yes,
final
of course, of
question?
course.
Do we, for you, is there any concern with supplanting, or is it a different source of funding, therefore it's all good? It's all good, okay.
Okay, and for the record, for everybody watching, either in the audience or at home later, Steve Groom, our award-winning finance director, indicated no. All right, anything else for the good of the order? Great job, council. We really moved the needle today. Thank you very much. Great job. We're adjourned.
I think part of that 650 was for a grant writer.
I know, but a grant writer's a $120,000
I
position.
know, it was way too much.